bring back bad memories, you know. Even to this day, I mean, if I see them at the Piggly Wiggly, you know, they go down another aisle. Like I can't see them over top of, you know, the bread section. I thought, well,
I understand you're not just the youngest member of your family. You were also the tallest, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got my great-grandmother's genes.
Mm-hmm.
She was a Choctaw, and we had a little bit of Cherokee in us, and and my granddaddy was a German, and very, very, very tall, striking man, and for whatever reason, in the genetic wheel of fortune, I got his height as well. Now, my sister started a horrible rumor that I was not the legitimate daughter of my daddy. That they had said that my mama had a relationship with a man prior.
And I understand that came out in a news story in the Tri-County Tribune during your third year.
Story.
Yeah, during your third year reign as Miss Tri-County, right? During your third year, but it didn't. Look, I understand it's horrible, but it didn't do anything to stop your reign because you won it again that year, didn't you?
Absolutely not. And I know who did it, but I cannot prove it. You know, in a court of law, I couldn't prove it's word of mouth. But the word of mouth I heard it from was told specifically that they had a hand in sending that article out. And here's the thing. They said he was this, can't even believe it now, but, and I've seen a picture of him back, you know, I went down to the library to look when the traveling circus was coming through. There was some famous man who was an acrobat, and rumor was that my mama one day bought a ticket to go to the circus, and he took a liking to her because she did look very similar to me and my grandma.
She did some hand modeling, right?
And she was gone for a few hours.
She did some hand modeling in her youth?
Oh, she had beautiful hands, yes. And she could have done more, but if my granddaddy was, we're talking about my mom or my grandma now.
Your mom now.
Oh, yeah, my daddy was jealous of anybody who looked at her. So when she wanted to become a model and go out to New York City, because little do people know, hand modeling is
quite lucrative.
It is, because they're looking for a specific bone structure to show off jewelry, bracelets, that kind of thing. And you can be ugly as a dog, but if you've got beautiful hands, you can be a superstar in that field. And my mama had both. She was a double threat. She could have done, you know, magazine work. She could have done a whole myriad of things, but she had a thing for the hand modeling, and she was told by a photographer in our area that one of these big wigs out in New York City had come across an article when he was eating at the cafe coming through town to go back to California. He said, "Who did this?" And Grayson, who owned the cafe at the time, said, oh, that's Melinda Jones's hands. We use her periodically in town for little models and stuff, and that's JB's jewelry design, and they had hired her to come out and do that. And he just couldn't get over the fact that this big wig New York City man wanted to know whose hand that was. He just had no idea how much money you can make with something like that. And so he said, "Here's my card," and he handed it to the cafe owner, and he said, "Get a hold of her, hand her my card, and tell her that if she's interested in this field, that she can pack her bags and come tomorrow." Okay? And sure enough, my mama came in that Wednesday to get a soda. Golly, she tears up when she tells me this story, and he hands her the card and he tells her what this guy says, and she goes, "No, you're lying." And he said, "No, he was real serious." And she said, "I couldn't believe it. It was a dream come true." And her heart, she said, just was fluttering and fluttering. And she raced to see my granddaddy, well, my dad, and he was pulling tickets at the time down at the theater. And she went running down there, and she said to him, she said, "You're never going to believe this. My dreams is coming true." And my granddaddy looked at the card, he looked at her, and he said, "Melinda," is her name Melinda? I forget. He said, "Melinda, I get that this is something you've always dreamed of. But if you get on that bus and go to California, you might as well take off that promise ring, because I've already lost you." And she swore up and down, "No, it won't change anything." But my dad at the time thought she's going to go off, meet somebody. And he said, "You might as well just give him back the ring," because there were several girls in town that had an eye to him, and he just felt like she'd be gone forever. So why,
So she chose
prolong
family.
the agony, right?
She chose family over a career.
She said that. She said sometimes she regrets it. But she looked at him, and she knew he was dead serious. And she said, "You know what?" She said, "Yes, this is my dream, but you are also my dream." And she turned around and walked away, and ripped the card up as she walked away to show him that he was everything to her. She had plans, she said, of him coming up there, and they'd make a way together in California. He wasn't going to leave.
Yeah. And
plus, he said only whores do that, but that was something he said later on. And my mama was like, "Well, I'm no whore." And he said, "Well, you would have been one, because sooner or later, that's what whores do."
So how proud was she when you expressed an interest in competing in the Tri-County Ags, Tri-County, Miss Tri-County?
Oh, she glowed. She's so proud.
How was she very much involved, or were you basically doing your own thing? I noticed that your themes from year to year would change. Did those ideas come as a collaboration, or were they your ideas?
Sometimes it varied. I mean, sometimes it'd be people coming up to me and saying, "Hey, we've had this year after year, and let's make it more interesting," and we had TV back then, and so everybody's looking at commercials and movies and going to the theater, and they were like, "How is it that we don't have beauty pageant contests with bathing suits?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Prior to you, every single competition, everybody wore the same green, John Deere green. And everybody wore it because, that's, number one employee in Tri-County. Obviously, they had to kiss up, I think, to the judges to let them know they were tried and true. But then you walked in that sparkling, striking,
oh yeah, I did.
polka dot,
that caused a big
two-piece, and I think people thought, well, she just shocked to win, but you didn't, because the next year you did something different and won anyway.
Every year.
So
every year.
So was that your mom or was that you?
No, my mama said, for me, I had to go my own way. I had to pick my own ending, and you're going to have to go your own way. You're going to have to pick your own ending. Mm-hmm. She didn't want to interfere. Mm-hmm. My dad was, he wouldn't say it, but he was awfully proud. Like, he would go down to Casey's General Store and walk in, and everybody'd clap, "Oh, look who it is. It's the daddy of the most beautiful girl in Tri-County area," and he
wore that shirt, didn't he? On Father's Day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what
everywhere.
I thought I saw him.
Yeah, everywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Miss Donna Rochelle Davies, Miss Tri-County Ag 1971 to 1977, and we're just asking questions. And now, in your 5th year, that was when you met David Davidson Davies.
Yes.
Isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, now, I understand your dad didn't let you date then, right?
No, he did not.
So how did that work out for you? Because you still competed for 3 more years after that.
I did. Well, I didn't tell my daddy at all because I knew he would not approve. So Once I knew he was interested, you know, he came up and he said, "Hey, I want to take you on a date." And I said, "Get lost." You know, get lost.
What'd he say?
He said, "In your dreams, I will never give up on getting a date with you." And sure enough, he didn't. You know, every place I went, if he popped up, he would come over and say, "I think it's about time we go on our date." And I'd be like, "You're crazy. You're crazy. I don't even want to talk to you." And every time I saw him, you know, it was like my heart just would flutter out of my chest. But I knew my dad just would not allow it, and I loved my parents so much. And so I just told him one day, I said, "Look, if I was to go out on a date with you, you would have to go and ask my dad, and he will never give you permission." And I said to him, "I will never go on a date with you until I get the approval, permission from my father." He told me later that changed everything for him. That's when he knew he was going to marry me. He said, "Anybody who has that much respect for their family, that's the girl for me. That's a high moral girl." Yeah. And from then on out, you know, it was fast forward. He showed up at my house one day, knocked on the door, and my daddy came out and he said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm the man that's going to marry your daughter."
He did not.
I thought my dad was going to just blow his head off. He didn't have his gun at the time.
But if he did.
We would not have been married for sure. So that was like God's intervention right there.
Now, in chapter 13 of your number one best-selling book down at Miss Beaumont's library there in Tri-County, it's been number one bestseller every year that they've had a list.
It has been. Okay. I think it's because we live in such a small town. It gives the local girls
some hope.
Absolutely.
Now, you titled it, "Donna Did It My Way." The Life and Times of Miss Donna Rochelle Davies.
Yes.
Miss Tri-County Ag, 1971, 1977.
Yes.
And you wrote that all by yourself. But in the 13th chapter, that's where you talked about Mr. David Davison Davies, and you spent an entire chapter on him. So, was it mutual at first, or did you think he's crazy?
No, I fell in love with him. If I'm to be honest, I fell in love with him the first time that I saw him.
That's so sweet. That's so sweet. So, but he didn't have any problem with you being Miss Tri-County for 3 more years. Did he help? Was he like a silent partner in there? I know your talent. You went from singing, painting. You did all kinds of things. But those last 3 years, you were knocking people off their socks with your talent.
Yeah, well, don't ask my sisters. They'll tell you that I paid the judges under the table with more than just money. You know, which is so sad.
Yeah, those stories have dogged you your entire career. And you talk about that in your book in chapter 17.
Yes, I do.
Do you give any credence to the fact that it's just jealousy, or do you think there was more than that?
You know, I don't really know. I mean, I think as we get older, we sort of contemplate over different ideas, you know, but I think that people disregard that emotion. Jealousy is a very fierce thing.
Is that why you wore green that last year? Were you sort of bringing that up?
Maybe.
Because I don't think a lot of people know
Might have
this.
been subconscious, but I mean, that's a good point. You know, sometimes you do things not knowing why you do them, and then later on somebody like you comes along and says that, and it's just very
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Well, I find it interesting after reading that book. By the way, I have 3 copies of it. I was hoping you'd sign one before you left.
It would be my honor.
Okay, well, I read it, and more than once, just so you know. I even got the audio book. Anyway, after reading it, I was just wondering, did you feel anger toward those rumors? Because the last 3 years, there were more female judges than there were male judges. What were they saying? That you somehow were paying them differently because they're women?
Well, no. You have to understand that there's a lot of prominent families just in our area.
But that was the 70s. I don't understand.
I think a lot of the women judges came up. I don't want to... I really don't want to speculate, but what I'm going to say is they felt like as long as I was competing and there was a man who was a judge, the likelihood of somebody else's daughter winning a pageant was very nil to none. So you had grandmothers, local women business owners who were related to young ladies that might or might not be coming up to compete, so they would set them in that position a couple of years prior so it wouldn't look like nepotism. And even then I still won. And so that was another controversy. That's when they were like, well, she must be paying them. And if anybody knows anything, I didn't have books back then.
No,
all I had was my character and my grandmother's long locks of hair, which were frankly breathtaking.
Well, they were to David Davis and Davies. I'll tell you that.
They were, yes, and he says that to this day. He saw that hair and he said, "You know what? That is gorgeous."
Well,
and I want to put my fingers through him, but
he's a lucky man. I'll tell you that right.
But
now.
I kept my hair back real tight,
he's
so nobody could
lucky,
run their fingers through
He's
it.
a lucky man.
Well, thank you very much.
But anyway, I wanted to get to the scandal of 1978. Now, you had just done 8 years straight as Miss Tri-County Ag. 8 years straight. And I want to just set the record straight for all my listeners here in the Tri-County at WTTP that what they say in that scandal isn't true. I know what happened was you decided it was time to move on because you were starting your business with your husband, David Davis and Davies.
Yes.
And that you agreed to step down.
Yes, I did.
You weren't asked to, and
sir.
you weren't forced to.
No, sir.
So I just wanted to set the record straight. What happened in that scandal? I know the CEO of Texas Tri-County Ag became a huge sponsor at the end. He dumped a lot of money, and that's why it became televised nationwide.
Yes.
Did something happen?
First of all, I did not know that it was going to be televised. I may have decided to stay one more year had I known that, but that was all hush-hush. They didn't say anything about it. My reason for stepping down at the time was it was my time. I could have stayed on. I could have won more titles, but for me, it was time to move on. It was time to give somebody else a choice. As long as I stayed in the running, ain't nobody was going to win, and it was starting to get a little uncomfortable. So I made my point. I did what I did. I felt like I elevated the competition, the contest, the requirements. I felt like I had done my part, and I feel like I do have a page in history for that.
Absolutely.
But for me, it was time to move on. It was time to focus on my husband. It was time to focus on my future. And anybody who says my husband got jealous and said I couldn't be in the competition anymore is a liar. Because there's one thing, if you know anything about David Davidson Jr., he's all for whatever I want to do, okay? And he was proud of me. He was proud to have me on his arm, walking through town. He would have always supported me. But we decided that it was time together, okay? And so I stepped away. And it was only for that reason.
Why? Then, see, a lot of people want to tear down something, when jealousy's involved.
Oh, yeah.
So, was it because of the money? Was it because how the prizes change? People want me to ask this question. I don't believe it, but I'm going to ask it because people have asked me to. Why didn't you come back in 1978 and put the crown on the next winner?
I think by that time there was so much negative publicity around the rumors, and there were many, okay? Many of which were started by my own family members, okay? I just felt that that young lady needed that moment to be for her.
I think that's smart.
Had I shown up, it would have been all about me. Right. And I just didn't think it was fair to her.
Especially since it was televised, you think?
Yes, I do. I do believe that. It wasn't because my hair got cut off or it got burned like that one article said, because that wasn't true at all. I mean, I just couldn't believe it when I read that article. I was like, that's just crazy. And my husband does have pictures of me during that time a week
Yeah,
prior and a week after.
I was just going to say,
that was not the case.
I was just going to say in your autobiography in chapters 28 and 29, you talk about that, and you have the photos of you down at the river and at the lake. Your hair's just as long then.
And it is not a wig.
Exactly. Is that why you made sure there was a newspaper with a date on it in the photo?
Oh yeah, because a lot of people don't know this. That's raised in a family that's all supportive of one another. And trust me, my mama and my daddy were always supportive. And I feel so sad for them because they feel like they've been put in the middle of some, it's just vicious what's been going on. But my sisters have always been that way. Always. And anything good that comes my way, it's either because it was given to me or people's playing favoritism. And so that will never probably leave their mind as to how I have become the success that I've become. And that's sad, really, because my sisters have some really good qualities about them, but bitterness and jealousy is
not a good look.
It's eating them alive.
That's not a good look. Now, my daughter would like me to ask this question. I think she read the book or read somewhere.
Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet.
She said she wanted to know, because she knows from 71, 77 you did not have a tattoo. Do you have a tattoo now?
Well, I might have a small one.
You're going to reveal to our listeners?
No, that's between my husband and I. Okay? Some things stay behind closed doors.
Well, I'm just grateful that you came on today to talk, Miss Donna Rochelle Davies. But I was wondering if you'd come on next week so we could talk about your new venture, Squatch Watch. Do you think you could come on next week with maybe your husband?
We would be honored.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Miss Donna Rochelle Davies, Miss Tri-County Ag, 1971, 1977. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome anytime.